What if some of the best things about you came from the worst things that happened to you? Most people think suffering only leaves scars, a broken relationship, a painful loss, years they'll never get back. But what if that's only half the story? Because hidden inside life's hardest battles are gifts that almost nobody talks about, not gifts that make the pain worth it, not gifts you would ever choose, but gifts that change you in ways comfort never could. The strange part is that most people never recognize them. They think they've simply become more tired, more distant, or more cautious, when in reality, something valuable has been quietly forming beneath the surface. And the first gift may already be part of who you are. Stop panicking over small things. The first gift is one that most people completely overlook. You stop panicking over things that once felt overwhelming, a delayed message, an unexpected setback, someone else's opinion. Before hardship, these things can feel enormous. But after you've lived through something that truly shook your world, your perspective changes. Because once you've faced real loss, real uncertainty, or real pain, your mind begins to sort problems differently. Not everything deserves the same emotional reaction. Not everything deserves your peace. What looks like indifference from the outside is often something much deeper. It's perspective. You've learned, often the hard way, that most situations are survivable, that one bad day rarely destroys a life, that panic usually solves nothing. And without realizing it, you begin carrying a quiet sense of stability that many people spend years trying to build. But emotional calm isn't the only thing suffering teaches. It also changes what you do when you're completely alone. And that's where the second gift begins to appear. You discover the difference between loneliness and peace. The second gift appears when you're alone. And at first, it doesn't feel like a gift at all. After loss, heartbreak, or disappointment, silence can feel unbearable. That's why so many people try to escape it, with noise, with distractions, with constant company. But suffering has a way of forcing you to sit with yourself. And eventually, something unexpected happens. You discover that loneliness and peace are not the same thing. Loneliness is needing to escape yourself. Peace is no longer needing to. That's why some people feel lonely in a crowded room, while others can spend an entire evening alone and feel completely at ease. What changed wasn't the environment, it was the relationship they had with themselves. And once you've rebuilt yourself after hardship, silence stops feeling like punishment. It becomes clarity. The strange thing is that people don't suddenly become easier to read. They were always showing you who they were. You just couldn't see it before. But suffering changes that. And once it does, you start noticing things that were right in front of you the entire time. See what most people miss. The third gift is awareness. Not the kind that comes from books. The kind that comes from experience. When you've been disappointed enough times, betrayed enough times, or forced to rebuild enough times, you start noticing patterns that others overlook. You notice who only reaches out when they need something, who disappears when life becomes inconvenient, who listens to understand, and who only listens to respond. The people around you haven't suddenly changed. Your perception has. Because suffering teaches you to pay attention, not to words, but to consistency, not to promises, but to actions. And over time, this becomes one of the most valuable forms of wisdom you can develop. You stop judging people by who they claim to be, and start noticing who they repeatedly show themselves to be. The result isn't cynicism, it's clarity. You waste less time chasing the wrong people, the wrong opportunities, and the wrong expectations. But awareness creates another unexpected challenge, because once you start seeing people clearly, it becomes much harder to ignore what isn't healthy for you anymore. You become harder to manipulate. The fourth gift isn't about becoming colder. It's about becoming harder to control. Before hardship, many people spend years searching for approval without realizing it. They say yes when they want to say no. They ignore red flags because they fear losing someone. They sacrifice their own needs just to avoid conflict. But suffering has a way of exposing the cost of that behavior. Eventually, you learn that not everyone who asks for your time deserves it. Not everyone who wants access to your life has earned it. and not every relationship is meant to be saved. That's when something important changes. You stop confusing guilt with responsibility. You stop mistaking attention for love. And you stop handing your self-worth to people who never intended to protect it. From the outside, this can look like distance. But it isn't distance, it's discernment. You finally understand that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. The strange part is that even after learning all of this, some questions never get answered. And one of the hardest lessons suffering teaches is how to keep moving forward anyway. You'll learn to live without closure. The fifth gift may be one of the hardest to earn. Because most people spend years waiting for answers they may never receive. Why did they leave? Why did it happen? What could I have done differently? At first, those questions feel impossible to let go of. You replay conversations, revisit old memories, reach for one final piece of information that might make everything make sense. But suffering eventually teaches a difficult truth. Closure is not something life always gives you, and waiting for it can become its own kind of prison. So little by little, you learn something else. You learn that healing doesn't always begin when questions are answered. Sometimes it begins when you stop demanding answers before allowing yourself to move forward. Not because the pain disappears, not because the loss suddenly makes sense, but because your life becomes more important than the mystery. And that shift creates a kind of freedom many people never experience. Then something unexpected starts to happen. The things you once overlooked begin to feel valuable again. And ordinary moments start carrying a meaning they never seemed to have before. Ordinary days start feeling extraordinary. One day, something strange begins to happen. The things you once overlooked start feeling valuable again. Not because they changed, because you did. After enough hardship, happiness stops looking like constant excitement. It stops looking like perfect circumstances. Instead, it starts appearing in places you barely noticed before. A quiet morning, a phone call from someone you love, a peaceful evening with nothing demanding your attention. These moments aren't extraordinary, but after loss, they stop feeling ordinary. Because suffering teaches you something many people never learn. Nothing is guaranteed, not your relationships, not your health, not even the routines you once took for granted. And once you understand that, gratitude becomes natural. You stop rushing through good moments as if they'll always be there. You start seeing value where others only see routine. This isn't settling for less, it's seeing more. But gratitude isn't the greatest gift suffering leaves behind. Because appreciating life is one thing, becoming stronger because of what tried to break you is something else entirely. Yo discover a strength most people never builds. The final gift is strength. But not the kind most people imagine. Not confidence, not toughness, not the ability to pretend nothing affects you. The strength suffering builds is quieter than that. It's the ability to keep going when certainty disappears. To keep loving after disappointment. To keep trusting after betrayal. To keep showing up after failure. Because real strength isn't revealed when life is easy. It's revealed when life gives you every reason to stop. And you continue anyway. That's why some of the strongest people don't look extraordinary from the outside. They're often the ones carrying invisible battles nobody knows about, the ones who have been broken more than once, the ones who have lost things they never thought they could survive losing. And yet, somehow, they're still here, still moving forward, still building, still hoping, not because suffering made them fearless, but because suffering taught them they could survive fear. And that's the gift hidden inside every difficult season. You discover that you're far more capable than you ever believed. Far stronger than comfort could have ever taught you. When people talk about suffering, they usually focus on what it takes away. The pain, the loss, the years that can never be returned. But that's not the entire story. Because hidden inside those difficult seasons are gifts that comfort rarely provides. Perspective, peace, awareness, discernment, acceptance, gratitude, and strength, not gifts anyone would choose, but gifts that can quietly transform who you become. So if you've been through a difficult chapter recently, remember this. The battle may have changed you, but it may also have built parts of you that would never have existed otherwise. If this video resonated with you, leave a comment sharing which gift you've discovered in your own life. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more insights into psychology, resilience, and human behavior.